Hello, this is a Lord of the Rings The Living Card Game expansion pack review, the Conflict at the Carrock. This is the second pack put out by Fantasy Flight for their Shadows over Mirkwood cycle. And as in every pack, you get one new hero, two new cards for each sphere, and one neutral card. There are obviously minor spoilers contained in here if you want all the player cards to get secrets, so if you want that to be the case, stop watching now, I guess. Right then, the first card, of course, is the hero, and this is Frodo Baggins. You can see on Frodo's card that he has a solid willpower, solid willpower of 2, and a solid defense of 2. He has exceptionally low hit points at 2, just like his Uncle Bilbo from the first pack, but whereas Bilbo's low defense is a real weakness, Frodo's isn't as much. He has a unique power that reads response. After Frodo Baggins is damaged, cancel the damage and instead raise your threat by the amount of damage he would have been dealt, limit once per phase. So this means once a turn, Frodo is essentially invincible. Any excess beyond his defense will go into threat increase, which isn't great. It's better than a dead hero, but what it does mean is within the Spirit deck, which has a lot of tricks for lowering threat, you can sometimes afford threat to go up more than you can afford wounds, since you don't have any healing. The limit once per turn is something to be aware of, since it means that if somehow he's damaged twice, you're only going to be able to save him once. So, really, he provides the tank role for the Spirit deck. As it stands at the moment, you've only got Eowyn, Eleanor, and Dunhere, all of which have 1 defense, and none of which are terribly suited to defend to the role of defending. Of course, he's got 2 willpower as well, so he can also fulfill a questing role, and this is particularly true if you use an attachment from a later deck, Fast Hitch, which allows Hobbit characters to basically unexpected courage. Ready the character, exhaust the attachment for hobbits, so it lets your Hobbit characters act twice, which with someone like Frodo who's good at 2 things really comes through. The second card in the expansion is the Dwarven Warning. I gotta say, I'm a big fan of this card. It's a 1-cost attachment for the leadership deck. It reads, attached to a hero, the attached hero gains +1 defense, and as with all the Dwarven attachments, you can pay 1 resource from the attached hero's pool to attach Dwarven Warnings to another hero. The reason I really like this card, and I actually find it the most helpful of all the Dwarven stat boosters, is that defense has to stand alone in the game, and it can't be pooled, with the exception of 1 tactics event. Whereas with attack, if you have a 3 attack hero and a 2 attack hero, you've got 5 attack altogether. With defense, if you've got a 2 defense hero and a 3 defense hero, well, you can only use 1 of those. Whereas now, with this, you can turn a 2 defense character into a pretty decent tank, and it is particularly good in a more than 1 player game. On Aragorn, Judas Sentinel, and suddenly you have this 3 defense character who can defend anyone. Personally, I always find this worth paying the points for. It turns 1 defense terrible into a decent defense, 2 defense into a great defense, and 3 defense into a 4-point. What's going to get through that? These are worth every resource, I would say, particularly in a deck that generates so many resources. However, after the love of that card, the other leadership card is Second Breakfast, which I'm not a fan of, and I don't think anyone is. It's a 1-cost event. It reads, action, each player returns the topmost attachment card from his discard pile into his hand. It's such a shame that such a good quote from the films has been wasted on a not terribly great card. It's unbelievably situational. It's never found its way into my deck due to high competition of cards. You're paying a resource to return the topmost attachment card from your discard pile. Really, very few attachments end up in your discard pile. You rarely discard an attachment. The only way that can come up is, from a shadow card or something along those lines. And so, a rare instance, I cannot I cannot see why you would put this in your deck when card draw isn't a strength of the leadership deck anyway. So if your one card that you draw this turn is Second Breakfast, I think it's one of the weakest cards we've seen so far. The third new card is the Bjorning Beekeeper. He is an ally for the tactics deck. He is 4 cost. He has 1 willpower, 2 attack, 1 defense, and 3 hit points. So very expensive. He's fairly durable, but I mean, suppose it's his action. That's what you're paying the points for. But it's action: discard Bjorning Beekeeper from play to deal 1 damage to each enemy in the staging area. Now, this ability I find really has only ever paid off when we've played with 3 or 4 players. When during the encounter phase, when you got the enemies in the staging area, you could be drawing up to 4 enemies. You discard this guy, you've got 4 wounds put out there. Even so, for 4 cost and discarding him, we don't find much use for this. There are so much better allies for a less cost, and at 4, that is more than 1 turn's worth of resource generation. I don't see that worth the cost myself. But the other tactics. The other tactics card is the 0 cost attachment Born Aloft. So you can never really argue with a 0 cost. It is you attach it to an ally, and action: discard Born Aloft from play to return attached ally to its owner's hand. Very important differentiation. Attached to an ally. You can't put this on a hero and save a hero from death. But what you can do is pop this on an ally, and basically you discard Born Aloft rather than discard the ally if they were to be killed. This can be really useful on certain allies, such as the Gondorian Spearman. Sentinel causes a wound when he defends. Cheap. Or on Gandalf. He leaves at the end of the turn. You discard Born Aloft. Gandalf goes back into your hand. You get 2 uses of Gandalf. Expensive, but it's got its uses. It can be quite good if your card draw is fairly slow, so you can't really afford to just throw the allies away. Instead, this way you'll get them back. You've got the resources to spend, you just don't have the cards. So Born Aloft can have a use, and it's 0 cost, so quite good in split sphere decks. I mean, technically you could put this in any deck. It doesn't cost anything, so it's not really a tactics card when you think about it. It's basically neutral if it's 0 cost. So any deck that wants to keep their ally rather than discard them, there could be some use for it with some of the discard ally cards in the Spirit deck. But the next new card is a Spirit hero, Eamund. He is 3 cost, 2 willpower, 1 attack, 1 defense, and 2 hit points. And he has the ability Response. After Eamund leads play, ready all Rohan characters in play. I'm not a huge fan of this guy. He's got good spirit, he's got good willpower, as is the case with the Spirit deck. However, it's only in defense that his power will really come into play. He's got to be discarded. He's got to leave play, for him to ready all Rohan characters. It relies on you having a lot of Rohan allies to really make the most of this power. And really, if you look at the Rohan heroes that we've currently got Eowyn and done here, they would only be readied generally when Eamon dies, which is generally going to be in defense, barring treacheries or monsters when revealed do 2 damage to a character, which means they're only really going to come up in the attack phase if they were already exhausted, and you're not really going to have sent done here on a quest. You're going to have held him back anyway, so he's not going to need to be readied. Eowyn has 1 attack, so the heroes aren't really getting too much out of this, and typically the Rohan allies are only really good at one thing. The 3 cost, I'm not really sold on him. He doesn't really do what the Spirit deck needs, as far as I use it. Perhaps other people have had more success with him, but particularly the later Spirit heroes that come into the deck, come into the Spirit allies, sorry, that come into the Spirit deck, I've not really seen much play from Eamund. Having said that, of course, now I'm going to contradict myself. The other new card for the Spirit deck is Nor Am I a Stranger, which might be one of the coolest names for a card yet. It's a 1-cost attachment. You attach it to a character, and that character gains the Rohan trait. So obviously, this makes Eamund's ability better, because you can have a character who wouldn't have been Rohan suddenly is now, and that's character. So heroes can be keyed off by this as well, which does make Eamund more useful. It's a 1-cost, and this only has any use if you have a couple of the Rohan character events or allies such as Eamund. You've got Ride to Ruin, discard a Rohan ally from play and gain 3 progress tokens. You've got We Never Sleep, ready all Rohan characters, all Ride to the West, something along those lines. Gain all Rohan characters, gain 2 willpower. So Nor Am I a Stranger, I have found, has a use. 1 cost can be a bit painful when there are so many good Spirit cards. But I do have a bit of a soft spot for this card in the Spirit deck as a whole, so it does occasionally find its way in if I'm really trying to build something around having a lot of Rohan characters. The 7th new player card is a Lore ally, the Longbeard Map Maker. He's a 3-cost ally with 1 willpower, 1 attack, 1 defense, and 3 hit points. And he's a dwarf, and just in case you didn't get that from the picture, his action is you spend 1 lore resource to give the Longbeard Map Maker +1 willpower until the end of the phase. He's a very healthy ally. You can't argue with 1 defense and 3 hit points. That potentially gives you, he can take 2 attacks. He has a low spirit, which can be boosted, and he's a fairly decent all-rounder. It's another dwarf card in the lore deck, which is important for when Dain Ironfoot, the leadership dwarf hero, comes into the cycle, because he'll give all dwarves +1 willpower, +1 attack as long as he's readied. So this can turn the Longbeard Map Maker into a 2, can be boosted to a 3 willpower character, and that's really nice to the lore deck, who can sometimes struggle with their questing. I've got a bit of a soft spot for the guy because he can sort of do everything and he can really take a hit. And if you ask me, would you rather have the Bjorning Beekeeper or the Longbeard Map Maker? I'll take the Longbeard Map Maker every time. And the final lore card is the Burning Brand. This is a 2-cost attachment, and you have to attach it to a to a lore character. While attached character is defending, cancel any shadow effects on cards dealt to the attacking enemy. So good. So good. It removes any random elements of the combat involving this character. You know exactly how hard your enemy is going to hit you. This can guarantee you a certain level of damage. So if you know you have 2 defense, it has 3 attack, there is no way, unless you're on 1 hit point, it's going to kill you. If it has 3 attack and you have 3 defense, particularly somebody like Denethor, high defense, low hit point, so good, so perfect. And it can also avoid those truly horrific shadow cards, such as Despair, cancel. The defending character does not count their defense in this attack. Suddenly an attack that was nothing a second ago has just slaughtered you. It can be attached to a lore character as well, not even just a hero. So if you've got some of the big lore allies, such as Gildor or Haldir, they're almost heroes in themselves. And with this, they can make cracking defenders. And even better if you can combine Burning Brand with the earlier mentioned Dwarven Warning to create an additional defense, you can make almost any character immune, any law character incredibly resistant to all but the heaviest hitters like your trolls. Really good card. Really big fan. Only downside is it has to be attached to a law character. If this could be attached to any character, it would be an absolutely amazing card. It just removes that element of chance while still drawing the shadow card, then cancelling it, so you can actually get your way through some nasty cards without them even affecting you at all. And the final card is our neutral card, and it's Song, as is going to be the case throughout a lot of this cycle. It's the Song of Wisdom. 1 cost attachment attached to a hero. The attached hero gains the Law resource icon. This has all the benefits of a normal song. It can really give your deck some flexibility, in allowing you to have more law cards. But one of the nice bonuses, we just talked about the Burning Brand, which can only be attached to a law character. Attach the Song of Wisdom to somebody, as we have done, then give them the Burning Brand, and suddenly you've got Aragorn attached to the Warning. Why not? Go crazy. You've got a 3 defense, sentineling, shadow card cancelling monster out there. And there are very few enemies that he'll need to worry about, and because he's a sentinel, he's protecting everyone in a 2-player game, and therefore that's practically 1 enemy a turn that you just do not even need to consider. I mean, that is excellent. If you're going to take Burning Brand, I really recommend, unless you've got a whole party of law heroes anyway, to really take the Song of Wisdom. That's all the cards in the or the player cards in the Conflict at the Carrock expansion. Some really good ones, some of the worst cards that we've seen so far. But the nice thing about these expansions, and I always try and say, is that they escalate. They really combine together really nicely. So Nor Am I a Stranger really comes into its own later in the cycle. Eamund's ability gets better as you go along in the cycle. It's really only usually the tactics deck escalates. Like, it started with these eagle finding cards, and then in this one, the second expansion, there were no eagle keyword cards, which was a bit disappointing, but you just got to keep going through the cycle, unfortunately. I hope you've enjoyed this look through the cards in the Conflict at the Carrock expansion, and hopefully see you for the next card examination.